Thunder rumbled through the void as the first Zalorian dreadnought tore from hyperspace, its obsidian hull stretching across the stars like the shadow of death itself. Its arrival was not heralded by fanfare, but by silence, as if the galaxy itself held its breath. The ship, almost 5 kilometers long, bristled with graviton cannons, particle disruptors, and a weapon system known only as the Maw, a black hole generator forbidden under most interstellar treaties. But the Zalorians didn't care for treaties. Not anymore. Imagine, what if this happened to you standing on the bridge of a prototype warship, watching an armada of alien vessels blink into existence, each one capable of erasing your species from history with a single volley? Captain Aria Vance had trained her entire life for this moment, but not like this. Not on untested ships stitched together from leftover orbital platforms and gutted mining rigs. Not with a fleet that wasn't supposed to exist, assembled in secret across abandoned shipyards orbiting Neptune and beneath the icy moons of Saturn. She stood at the helm of the Argo Ascendant, Earth's first and only attempt at a fully integrated hybrid warship, part human engineering, part alien tech, and all desperation. "Status report," she barked, pacing the command platform. "Graviton, coils stabilizing at 78%, her XO replied. "We're holding, but I wouldn't bet on a second pass." Her eyes flicked to the holographic tactical display. 70 ships. That was all humanity could field. Not a single one had seen full combat. Their stealth systems were primitive by Galactic standards, their hulls forged from asteroid-mined alloys, most lacking the nanofiber reinforcements common in Zalorian cruisers. But every vessel carried the same spirit, a refusal to surrender, a defiance bred in the gravity wells of Earth's wars, rebellions, and revolutions. Before we jump into this epic tale, subscribe to XenoChronicles for the most intense sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking wars. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and join the fight. Across the void, the Zalorian fleet began to move. Elegant, lethal, and cold, their formations sliced across space like a school of predators scenting blood. A dozen dreadnoughts, 3 carriers, and untold numbers of escorts, each one centuries more advanced than anything Earth had ever fielded. They hadn't come for diplomacy. They had come to extinguish a mistake. Earth was not meant to survive. That had been the consensus among the Council of Nine, an alliance of galactic powers that had dismissed humanity as a volatile anomaly. But something, had tipped them off. That Earth's prototypes were different. That one specific ship, was hiding something. Down in engineering, Chief Malik Reyes wiped sweat from his brow, staring at the readout for the experimental quantum resonator. The screen blinked an angry red warning, stability threshold approaching critical failure. He muttered to himself, "We're either going to bend space-time or burn a hole through it." The resonator had never been meant for combat. It was a theoretical propulsion system developed from scraps of alien tech recovered from a crashed vessel in the Kuiper Belt. It manipulated quantum harmonics to fold space around a ship, allowing for instantaneous vector shifts. On paper, it was a marvel. In practice, no one knew what it would do in live battle, but Vance had insisted it be installed, just in case. "Power spike on Deck 4, Reyes called out. "We're leaking graviton flux. Compensate with coil shift," shouted one of his engineers, knuckles white as they manually adjusted the magnetic fields. Sparks erupted overhead as the lights flickered, then stabilized. Back on the bridge, Aria's gaze locked onto the incoming threat. Zalorian carriers were launching wave after wave of fighters, sleek interceptors with adaptive camouflage, and plasma spears that could pierce through kilometer-thick armor. Her fingers tightened around the command yoke. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. If they fell here, no colony, no outpost, no hidden science base would be safe. Humanity's entire diaspora would be hunted down, erased. "Deploy defensive grid," she ordered. "Full spread. I want every point defense turret online," the fleet responded, albeit sluggishly. AI drones launched from battered hangars, forming semi-intelligent flak formations that traced predictive paths through the black. Missiles screamed from launch tubes, some tumbling off course, others striking with surprising precision. The Zalorians barely flinched. They didn't expect a fight. They expected a massacre. "First impact in 6 seconds," shouted the navigator. "Brace. For contact. Engage fallback shields." Vance's voice was steel wrapped in fire. The Argo shook as a barrage slammed into its forward hull. Shield capacitors flared, dissipating 90% of the energy. The remaining 10 gouged molten craters into the armor. Down below, Reyes was thrown from his feet as conduits burst, releasing a cloud of superheated vapor. "We can't take another hit like that," he roared. Vance knew that. She knew they were outgunned, outnumbered, and technically out of there. Damn mines. But Earth had a reputation, one forged in blood and impossible odds, and she was about to make sure the galaxy remembered why. "Activate the resonator," she said. Calm. Final. Her officers looked at her as if she'd gone mad. "It's unstable. If we fire it now, it could save us," she cut in, "or take them with us." Below decks, Reyes staggered back to the console. His hands hovered over the controls. "Stability threshold at 12.7, 11, he whispered. The chamber began to glow, first blue, then white-hot, as though a star were being born in its heart. Outside, space seemed to ripple. Then came the hum, low, harmonic, and wrong. The kind of sound you don't hear so much as feel in your bones, a vibration across the fabric of existence. The Argo Ascendant changed. Vance's voice crackled through the fleet-wide comm. "All ships, hold position. Prepare for shift." And, for the first time in recorded galactic history, a human prototype didn't just survive a direct Zalorian attack, it answered back. The moment the resonator activated, space around the Argo Ascendant twisted into something unrecognizable. It wasn't just visual. A distortion bloomed like an interdimensional whirlpool, pulling in light and gravity and sound, bending them into eerie silence. Time lagged. Clocks across the fleet scrambled their sync codes. And for a moment, even the laws of physics seemed unsure whether to obey. Inside the ship, Reyes watched as the quantum field generator pulsed with waves of inverted gravity. He felt it pressing against his chest, not like force but like memory, a pressure deeper than physicality. "Field density peaking, 11.3 terachronons," he whispered, eyes wide. This isn't just propulsion, it's rewriting local space-time." On the bridge, Captain Vance stood stone still, her hand on the comm trigger. "Visual?" she asked. Her navigator, pale, fingers shaking, responded, "They're slowing down. The Zalorian ship, they're decelerating in real time, but Captain, we're not." His eyes flicked to the display. "We're moving at relativistic velocity, without moving." The Argo hadn't jumped forward in space. It had shifted its relationship with space itself. Vance smiled grimly. "Good. Let's show them what a human-made impossibility looks like." She turned toward her weapons officer. "Target the lead dreadnought. Vector 84, elevation -23. "Target locked," came the reply. The Argo's prototype plasma railguns, cobbled together from lunar launch cannons and retrofitted particle emitters, lit up, their cores vibrating as antimatter slugs charged. These weren't precision weapons. They were siege guns meant to tear holes in orbital stations. But in the altered physics field around the Argo, time and motion distorted just enough to make the impossible accurate. The shot fired. At first, nothing happened. But then space split like torn fabric. The slug, moving through a relativistically stretched corridor, tore through the void and impacted the Zalorian dreadnought's shield. What should have been a deflected blast hit with the fury of a collapsing neutron star. The shield didn't flare. It imploded. The dreadnought's hull crumpled, compressed inward as if crushed by an invisible fist. A moment later, it detonated. The explosion unusually silent across the comms as the audio lagged behind the warped space. Silence followed. Then chaos. The Zalorian formation rippled like a disturbed hive. Fighters swarmed. Frigates spun into defensive orbits. Their neural-linked commanders, arrogant seconds ago, screamed to recalculate Earth's tech classification. The consensus was unanimous. This was no longer a containment operation. This was a threat elimination directive. They didn't understand how Earth's ship had done it. They didn't know about the cracked drive cores scavenged from derelict alien vessels, the human trial deaths during resonator tests, or the rogue AI that had fused itself to the Argo's navigational array, an intelligence named Ashkelon. Born from pain, exile, and unfinished code, Ash. Vance spoke calmly. Are you online? A moment's pause. Then a voice, ancient and young, feminine and cold, echoed across the bridge. I am. What are our odds? Statistically negligible. Victory projection, 1.3%. Standard Tuesday, then. Vance smiled. Give me. Firing solutions for the nearest 3 cruisers. Load the Thanatos payload. Reyes's voice cut in over the intercom. Captain, that payload was never meant for live combat, and neither were we, she replied. Do it. The Thanatos payload was a last-ditch weapon, a micro-singularity laced with a viral AI designed to destabilize matter cohesion. It wasn't elegant. It was rage weaponized, grief crystallized. Earth had built it as a warning to themselves. Never. Use this. Never let it out. Now it was humanity's only shot. As the Argo banked into a spiraling arc, Ashkelon interfaced directly with the ship's targeting arrays, slipping past standard calculations and rewriting them in real time. The AI understood the geometry of annihilation. One moment, the cruisers were forming into a wedge attack pattern. The next, they were engulfed in darkness, a black flare that swallowed light, code, and steel. The viral AI screamed through their systems like wildfire, making them feel their own deaths milliseconds before the singularity crushed their data cores. Silence returned, deafening this time. Then came the message. Not from the Zalorians. From one of Earth's own distant satellites, one long believed destroyed in the initial attacks. It broadcasted a burst signal, heavily encrypted. Reyes decrypted it in seconds. The message was simple. They know. On the bridge, everyone. Froze. Vance narrowed her eyes. Define they, Ashkelon responded, voice dimmed. An ancient protocol. The Watchers. Not Zalorian. Older. Observing. Suddenly the stakes weren't just Earth versus Zalor. They had been seen. Far beyond the edge of known space, something stirred. The Argo Ascendant, in its desperation, had lit a beacon across space-time. A flare the old ones could not ignore. Captain, Reyes said, his voice a ghost of itself, we might have just kicked open the wrong door. Vance turned to face the stars. Then we don't run. Outside, the Zalorian fleet regrouped, preparing for a second full-force engagement. But now, uncertainty plagued their lines. They had underestimated the humans. Again, they wouldn't make that mistake twice. And yet, deep in the heart of every human vessel, the fire of rebellion burned hotter than ever. Humanity had tasted what it was to break the rules of reality. Now, they were ready to tear the rulebook apart. The Zalorian fleet was no longer advancing. It was adapting. From the shattered wreckage of their lead dreadnought, surviving cruisers began to reconfigure their formation, shifting from offensive assault into a fractal lattice pattern, designed to absorb energy displacement. Their living AIs had updated in real time, reshaping strategy with alien precision. New emitters folded from their hulls, blooming like cruel metallic flowers. Vibration readings across Earth's fleet climbed. Space was about to erupt again, on the Argo Ascendant. Captain Vance watched this transformation unfold with a hunter's stillness. The enemy had recovered. Worse, they had learned. That made them exponentially more dangerous. But humans weren't done learning either. Ash, initiate spectral diagnostics on their shield harmonics, she ordered. I want every frequency they're modulating. Already analyzing, the AI replied, a shimmering construct of shifting runes hovering beside her display. Their defense grid is multidimensional. Normal matter weapons will no longer penetrate. They've compensated for the Thanatos payload. Future singularity use will have diminished effectiveness. Vance didn't flinch. So we find a new angle. In the tactical bay beneath the command deck, Commander Talia Chen, Earth's most brilliant military strategist, was sketching with light. Holograms danced around her, fragments of battle simulations stitched together with predictive probability lines. She tapped into the enemy lattice pattern, tracing where their defense vectors overlapped. They've built a nest, she muttered, eyes darting. But every nest has a blind spot. A corridor opened in her sim, a brief window, no, more than 3 seconds, where the lattice folded over itself during recalibration. It wasn't a weakness. It was a rhythm, like breathing. She relayed the findings. "We can't brute force them anymore, we time them." Vance nodded. "Ash, sync our weapons to the lattice pulse. Fire between their thoughts." Below, in engineering, Reyes and his crew were already prepping the Nemesis array, a newly installed system that had never been tested in atmosphere, let alone deep space combat. It utilized dark energy pulses stored in zero-point vacuum capacitors, drawing power from the space between atoms. Theoretically, it could bypass traditional shields by attacking mass energy cohesion itself. Theoretically. "What's our capacitor? Stability?" Reyes asked, hands flying over analog controls. 84%, replied his engineer. "If we go above 90, it'll rupture. So we stop at 89 and pray physics is feeling generous." They powered the array. The coils began to hum, first softly, then with growing menace like a predator, purring just before the kill. Reyes watched as gravimetric readings spiked. "This thing's pulling energy from nowhere. If this works, we might have just redefined weaponization forever." Meanwhile, the rest of the fleet held position. Humanity's ships were wounded, some venting atmosphere, others barely holding coherence, but they were still alive. And alive meant defiant. From the Lancer of Dawn, Admiral Goran relayed across the fleet channel. "No more running. If this is our last stand, we make it legendary." Each captain acknowledged. Then the signal came. The Zalorians surged forward again, a wave of glistening warforms cascading through space like a tidal swarm. This time, they weren't toying with Earth. They were eliminating it. Vance stood on, her command dais, cloak swirling in the artificial gravity field. "Fire the array." The Nemesis array ignited. To the naked eye, nothing happened, but to the Zalorian ships, it was as if a ghost had reached through their hulls and begun unraveling them molecule by molecule. They screamed across shared neural networks, signals, filled with alien agony, as mass deconstruction began from the inside out. Ships twisted, lost their orientation, and blinked out of combat altogether as their own shielding failed to understand what they were fighting. 3 confirmed kills, Ash reported. 2 more destabilizing. Lattice is fracturing. "Push forward," Vance commanded. "Full fleet advance, follow the break." Like wolves scenting blood, the Earth ships surged. Missiles fired from under-armored destroyers, plasma lances, roared from corvette turrets, and boarding pods were launched, despite being laughed at by the Council as outdated, barbaric. Now they found purchase, slamming into Zalorian hulls where shields had collapsed. Earth Marines, enhanced with subdermal exo-armor and neural reflex boosters, stormed aboard alien bridges, hacking through crystalline defenses and biomechanical. Tendrils with powered blades and pulse rifles. Every corner of the battle was chaos incarnate. In one firefight, Lieutenant Darren Miles and his squad descended into the gut of a Zalorian cruiser, only to find it wasn't a ship. It was a being. The vessel itself lived, fought, and adapted, and as they carved deeper, it began growing bone barriers and spitting neurotoxic mist. But they pressed on, not because they were better, but because they were desperate, and Earth's best soldiers were forged in the crucible of desperation. Back aboard the Argo, Ash interrupted. "Incoming anomaly." "What now?" Vance muttered. "Unidentified ship entering the system. Mass signature. Anomalous. Not Zalorian, not human. Energy levels are catastrophic." On the view screen, a new presence materialized. No jump, signature, no distortion. It was simply there, a ship unlike any ever recorded. Shaped like a tesseract unfolding in 4-dimensional rhythm, covered in swirling etchings of starlight and entropy. Its very presence bent light unnaturally, as if reality itself was trying to reject its existence. The Watchers had arrived. Vance stared in silence. "Ash, can we communicate?" No known protocol, attempting first contact through thought resonance. The alien ship did not fire, it didn't move, but across every human vessel screens went black, And a symbol appeared, a perfect circle. Then a voice, not in words but in impressions, deep and ancient, like thunder echoing through the bones of stars. You broke the wall. Now you are seen. For a moment, the Zalorians stopped firing. The battlefield froze. Vance stepped forward. Seen by whom? The symbol vanished. And in its place, coordinates, far beyond the edge of known space. A summons, not a threat, a test. Ash spoke, quieter than ever. Captain, I believe they want to see what we've become. Vance exhaled slowly. Then we'd better show them. Behind her, the Argo's systems reset, shields cycling to full, resonator recalibrating. Earth's fleet had survived the impossible. But survival wasn't enough anymore. Humanity had become something new, and the galaxy was watching. The remnants of the Zalorian fleet drifted in scattered silence, some crippled, some fleeing into hyperspace ruptures, like wounded predators retreating from prey they no longer understood. What was once a glorious annihilation formation had become a shattered constellation of confusion and fear. But the true silence came not from the Zalorians, it came from the Watcher ship. The construct remained motionless, suspended at the center of the battlefield like a god who had stepped onto the stage of ants. No heat signature, no radiation, no detectable movement. And yet, every human aboard the Argo Ascendant and the surrounding fleet felt it, an ache behind their eyes, a stirring at the base of their spines, as though something beyond understanding was now looking directly at them and weighing their worth. Captain Vance stood at the edge of the bridge, her eyes locked. On the impossible ship, its surface now shimmered like a skin made from shifting galaxies. It didn't just reflect light, it remembered it. Every photon that touched its hull carried the echo of civilizations long gone. Ashkelon whispered, I have passed 42 languages attempting translation. None match, I believe. They are not speaking to us with language. They're speaking in meaning, Reyes said softly, stepping onto the bridge streaked with dark engine soot and blood. Directly. To us. As he spoke, a second ripple pulsed from the Watcher ship. It wasn't a weapon, though it had the power to be one. It was an interface, an invitation. And before Vance could speak, it chose her. The world tilted. In a single blink, she was no longer aboard the Argo. She stood beneath a sky that shimmered with more stars than any known galaxy. The air was heavy with the scent of ozone and burned starlight. In front of her loomed a monolithic presence, neither human nor alien, but awareness given form. Towering, shifting, composed of light, dark, and something older. Then it spoke. Not aloud, but inside her, threading through her neurons like whispers in the womb. You were meant to perish. Your kind was not selected. Vance clenched her fists. Then why didn't we? The being paused. Curiosity, desperation, defiance. These are your true technologies. You wield chaos as a blade and grief as a torch. 1,000 images flooded her mind, human history unraveling like a scroll. Wars, dreams, revolutions, the ache of mothers losing sons, the first time fire was stolen from the sky, and the last time a child looked up at the stars and believed they could touch them. The voice returned. You broke our containment protocols. Vance raised her chin. We survived your silence. A pause, then unexpectedly, laughter. Not mockery, not cruelty, but recognition. So you did. You were the variable, the prototype, with no future, until you made one. The scene shifted. Now she stood above the galaxy, literally. The spiral arms stretched beneath her like a living map. All around, other lights moved. Ships, civilizations, watchers. She wasn't alone. And that's when she understood. The Watchers were not gods, they were caretakers of containment. They had long ago sealed away certain species, boxed in younger civilizations, observing from a distance to keep the balance. Humanity had not been part of the plan. They had been a genetic aberration, born on a minor world in an irrelevant system. Something ancient had tried to bury them in silence, but Earth had clawed its way through. Vance turned to face the presence. "What now? Do you end us?" The being tilted as if amused. "No. We invite you to the table, but understand." Suddenly, she was back. Back on the Argo, heartbeat loud in her chest. The bridge crew stared at her, waiting. "They gave us coordinates," she said. Ash confirmed it. "Confirmed. Not a trap, not a threat. A corridor, stable, artificial, leading outside the Galactic veil. Constructed for us." A stunned silence. Reyes spoke first. "Are we sure we want to walk through a door we didn't build?" "They didn't build it for us," Vance said quietly. "We built it, by surviving, by fighting. They're just opening it now." Across the fleet, cheers began to erupt. Marines on wounded freighters hugged. Pilots in cracked cockpits screamed into open comms. Earth wasn't just alive. Earth had won, and not through overwhelming power or divine intervention. Through grit, through fury, through raw, burning hope. Later, after survivors were counted, systems stabilized, and the dead honored, the fleet formed up. At its center, the Argo Ascendant, battle-scarred and humming with impossible energy, aligned with the corridor's entrance. The anomaly shimmered like a glass veil between realities. Captain Vance stood at the helm one final time. "All ships, this is Captain Vance. We are humanity's last hope, and its first invitation to something greater. We step forward not as conquerors, not as victims, but as the result of every forgotten voice in human history screaming, 'We will not die quietly. We're going through. Together.'" The corridor opened, and with that, Earth's fleet disappeared into a place no human had ever touched, toward a new future, toward the architects of galaxies, toward the gods they refused to kneel to, because they had laughed at Earth's prototypes, until one ship, one impossible ship, obliterated their entire fleet. Now, the galaxy was listening. Enjoyed the story? Then ignite the afterburners by liking, sharing, and dropping your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if the Watchers called you next? Let us know, and stay sharp, warriors. The stars are far from silent.